that a clicker?
Forward, backwards.
Forward, backwards.
Forward, screen, backwards, right.
Okay, do you have any slides?
So you don't have any slides. He knows that when you finish, when she starts, that he will turn on the slides. It will come on and then you'll see it.
Okay.
These-
Hello. Okay, guys, we get started.
Turn them on. Turn them on. Just make sure they're in order. Yeah.
So welcome to our next panel. We're now talking about some really exciting innovation in the brain and mental health space. Yeah, please take a seat. So my name is Daniel. I'm the managing partner of Convergence Partners. We've been a fairly active investor in brain and mental health, both psychiatry and neurology, over the last 3 to 4 years. Just announced our 10th investment today. And we did a fairly rigorous screening of some of the, probably 150 or so companies that we've seen over the last year. And this is like the crème de la crème that we invited to come to Davos and basically present their business model. So today is Mental Health Day, but we've also brought actually 2 startups that are focusing on neurology, specifically Alzheimer's and dementia, because it's also for us a key investment theme, Alzheimer's. We probably heard that the first therapeutics are now coming to the market. Finally, we have a way to treat this terrible disease, which is actually going to be the largest disease, actually overtaking cancer, in a few years' time. And I think it's really exciting to have the first diagnostics solutions here that identify Alzheimer's, up to 20 years before the first clinical symptoms set in, and also non-pharmacological solutions to treat the disease, right? And then last but not least, also some other exciting companies, looking to improve basically brain health. So without further ado, I'm handing the mic over to Laura, who will present Brainscape to you. And then after the sessions, we have time for a few questions as well. Okay, enjoy.
All right, let's see if I'm on. Am I on? Yes.
It's over there.
We're over there. Okay, welcome. I have to admit, first off, I don't usually use a microphone to do this. I usually just shout very loudly. So if I deafen someone by doing this, I'm sorry. I want to introduce Brainscape, the company that we have just formed. So of all the panel here, I think we're the baby company, which is great. It's very exciting for us. I'm going to start with a big statement. Why not? We're in Davos. I think we understand more about outer space and the cosmos than we do about the function of the human brain and the dysfunction of the human brain. And I'm not being flippant there. I think we actually do, because we have far more instruments trained on outer space than we do on the human brain. Right? And it's a little bit ironic because I don't think anybody here is actually ever going to go to outer space, although all this information is kind of nice. But every single one of us is going to deal with a brain disorder of some type, whether that is in psychology area, whether that's in neurology or trauma. We are going to face a journey of dealing with brain disorders. And what's our big problem? And I say this pretty much across the board. What is the problem in brain health and mental health? We basically just don't understand what's happening in the human brain. Not at any length of time. The way we operate right now in medicine is we have kind of short touch points with patients where we can collect a bit of data and we can try to figure things out. And we work on a very reactive model a lot of the time of, oh, it's happened, let's see what to do about it. We don't really know what our clear diagnosis is. When we give a treatment, we don't really know what's happening with the treatment in the brain because we're not watching the brain. We're not looking at what's happening in the brain. And we're very slow at moving along this progression. This in medicine should be a fast efficiency to get from first symptoms to back to real life. And the longer you leave patients in this gray zone, this disability zone of not knowing what their diagnosis is, not knowing if their treatment's working, not knowing if they're under control, the bigger the costs. In every respect of life, the bigger the costs. So, why don't we know what the brain is doing? And we don't know what the brain is doing because we haven't yet come up with a way to send you home with a nice little device to monitor what's happening in your brain, right? The way we've done in cardiology and diabetes, we've done it in birth control for women. We send you home with a nice little device that's out of the way and you get on with life. Not so in medicine. This is where we're at if you want brain monitoring done. It's EEG. EEG is a great tool. It's the way we pick up brainwave activity. But this is the reality of going home with it, leaving the hospital with it, right? You can't do more than a couple of days max with this system. It is so cumbersome and ugly and messy. And so someone had to reinvent this. Someone had to completely rethink the way we do EEG monitoring to make it a perfect, usable, patient-friendly, easy wearable. And those people were down at the Wyss Center in Geneva. Thank you, Wyss Center. They did a lot of R&D, and they came up with the answer. And they came up with a brilliant piece of technology, which we now have in the company, and it's our job to commercialize it. And this is going to change the way we look at the brain, because finally we're going to look at the brain. We're going to look at brain activity all the time, 24/7, non-stop, for years. We're going to work with patients and their brain. This is the technology. And if you don't see it, it's because it goes under your skin. This has turned an entire 32-channel EEG system into something so small, we can slide it under the skin of the head and tuck it away where you don't see it anymore. Doesn't move, doesn't drop off, doesn't slide out of place. It just stays there, collecting data. That's it. And if you want to know how small it is, I always wanted to do this because Steve Jobs did this. He got this little tiny envelope out of his pocket, right? And he pulled out his solution. And if you want to know how small these little wires are, this is what we put under your brain now. We put it under your skin. It's teeny, 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 teeny. And it's going to stay there. You can all play with that later. Now we'll get back to this. So, what does this mean? We can put a 32-channel system under the skin. That means we can build a product that's going to market. This is the first product that's going to go to market. We have everything already tested. We have a surgical kit. This is a minimal procedure, but you still do need a surgical kit to slide it under the skin. We have the implanted Epios technology, which is the bit that's actually recording the brainwave data. We have a little wearable on the outside, which you'll see. It's right behind you, so I'm going to run over here. This little thing here, this tiny little black disc, very much like the cochlear ear implant for hearing loss, magnetically connects to the back, and that is transferring all of the data off the system and onto our servers and powering the device. So it's that small. That's all you would see from the outside. That's all you have to live with. And all the patient has to do is once a day, take that little device and the wearable, put it on a docking station, transfer the data, repower it, and put it back on. That's it. Go about living your life. And the Epios technology, that little implant technology that goes under the scalp, is so powerful, it's the beginning of a stage of things we can offer patients. So once we can do long-term monitoring and understand what's going on and understand how treatments are working, we can then actually use the same EEG signal we're getting off the brain to do neurofeedback. So now we can work with patients and engage patients in what's happening in their brain. And this is another big step that's going to change the way we work with brain disorders. And beyond that, if you're a real techno nerd, the bit we're excited about is the very same technology. If these little electrodes are under the skin, we can then switch some of the electrodes from a recording mode to a stimulating mode. And we can actually provide transcranial stimulation. Now, that's forefront, but that's what's going to come. An entire spectrum of services for patients with one tiny technology. Yes, there are other people out there. Yes, other people have gone subscalp, so it's not crazy to think putting things under the skin works. There are companies out there. The main differentiating factor between us and them is purely the design of these leads that I just showed you. We're the only company that can do a full head coverage, a 32-channel system. So we pick up all of the brain waves, we pick up all of the activity, and that gives us the biggest number of indications we can go for. So we're not just stuck to epilepsy, which a lot of our competitors are. We start in these 3 disorders because I have a clear market entry into these 3 disorders. We already have the surgeons and the neurologists who want to work with us. And if anybody's curious why they're the first 3, I can explain that very easily. But you very quickly then expand. We expand the monitoring and we expand the feedback. And once you have feedback, you can move into new indications. And from there, when we add the stimulation, that's when we get big markets. You don't get stellar technology without a stellar team, which is me, obviously. I'm the CEO. No, but one of our key members here is George Kuvas. If you don't already know his name, remember his name. He was one of the original inventors of this technology. He was also the previous CTO at the Wyss Institute. He is now with us in the company, and I am absolutely sure he's going to maximize the potential of this technology. I have all faith in George, and I'm glad he's with me. My other colleagues, Steve and Raquel, back us up immensely. Where are we at? Right, this is important. All of the R&D, all of the de-risking has been done. That was taken care of. This device has gone through all of its animal testing. It's gone through first in human. We had it in an epilepsy trial. So we know we can put these electrodes in, and we know we can get quality data over time from this electrode system. So the next step we have all the patents covering this design. We have FDA breakthrough device designation on this. Our next step is pure and simple. It's low risk. It's manufacturing. Not sexy, but absolutely required. We've got to get this manufactured to get it to the patients. And so that's my big drive now, is financing the manufacturing. And if you're an investor in the room, how many investors are in the room? There you go, you see, we've got a few. The good news is it's way cheaper than the James Webb telescope, right? So if you want to create cool pictures for $10 billion, that was the project to invest in. My cool pictures that are going to come off the human brain and be the first ever set of data, of continuous brain data, it's only going to cost $12.5 million to get to FDA approval. It is a bargain project. I'm opening with $2 million because we need to get going quickly with the manufacturing, but our total over the next 4 years is 12.5. And we're ready to go. We've lined up our manufacturers. We want this basically FDA approved in inpatients by 2030. Ambitious, but that's the kind of woman I am. And that's what we want to do with brain monitoring. We really want to shake up the world of brain health, mental health, all types of brain health, and get people the data they need to actually do something. We cannot change diseases if we cannot get the data to work off. So we want to get the data. And that's how to contact me, other than stop me as soon as I get off the stage and harass me, offer me money, open your wallets, whatever you want to do. And that's Brainscape. That's Brainscape in the Epios technology. Thank you very much.
So Matthias next.
So much.
Yeah. Okay.
So, hi everyone. It's a pleasure for me being here in this beautiful location during World Economic Forum. First of all, apologies for my English. As you can hear, I'm not a native speaker. I'm from Switzerland, that beautiful country where milk and honey flows. Everything is bright and shiny. Money is just on the street. And we do have one of the best healthcare systems in the world. But we share a problem with the rest of the globe, and this is mental health. Worldwide, or we are in a worldwide crisis. Worldwide, there are 35% of young people suffering on a mental health issue. And if this isn't bad enough, if you are seeking therapy for your child, you have to wait up to 12 months to get help. We at Swiss DTX, we are aiming to improve the situation and to make it a little better. Our vision is to make psychotherapy accessible for everyone, regardless of age, if you're a child or an adult, regardless of location, if you're living in a big city or on the countryside. Everyone should get help if they need help. And we are not only trying to reduce waiting times, we want to eliminate them entirely. And we think we can achieve this with the blended concept, with blended psychotherapy. So what is the blended concept? Blended means it's a hybrid form between online and physical. So you have a physical meeting with your therapist, and then you continue online on your intervention. You can use it also for assessment to bridge waiting times. You can use it as an aftercare solution to continue working on your therapy, on your intervention. And to show you or to illustrate you how it works, I can give you an example of our first customer, the University of Luxembourg. They conducted a clinical trial and they wanted to find out the impact of early childhood stress on mental health. So the girl on the right is Melanie. She's 12 years old, she lives in Germany, and she's a participant of this study. Melanie was not always that happy. At the age of 4, she got the life-changing diagnosis, leukemia. Luckily, she recovered, but the illness left its mark. Melanie was working on our 12-week intervention for emotion control. She was in regular contact with the study director in Luxembourg, and after completing the intervention, she noticed that she had better control over her emotions and that she stopped being angry with her mom all the time. Also, the University of Luxembourg, they monitored the progress and they confirmed what other researchers studied, that online supported psychotherapy is at least as good as face-to-face therapy. So how does our solution look like? How did we do that? We built a collaboration platform. There are two parts. There's a therapist backend and a mobile app for the patient. In the backend, the healthcare professional add a patient, assign an intervention based on the needs of the patient, can communicate with the patient and monitor the progress. On the mobile app, the patient works on the intervention, on the therapy program, completes screeners and exercises, and if they need help, we have a built-in SOS function to locate the closest helping point. We built a whole ecosystem around it. So there is not only the back end and the front end, we have an intervention library where the therapist can pick a ready-made evidence-based intervention and start using it right away. So now the big question, how does it look? And we figured out that this is one of the biggest problems we have right now. There are many apps out there, and many of them are just not fun to use. They are not user-friendly. They're a bit boring. So we spent a lot of time in concepting and designing an age-based interface, which means that the interface is adaptable to the age of the patient. So a child can use or will work with some illustrations, and an adult has a more cleaner interface. Inside the intervention, we have many modules. We have plain text, we have illustrations, we even have a thesaurus function, which explains difficult words. We have a chat simulation, and of course, all the standard components like text input boxes, audio and video, stuff like that. While developing the product, we saw that we can use it for far more than just psychotherapy. We can use it for every kind of treatment where a healthcare professional has to communicate with a patient and to stay in touch. We started 2.5 years ago. We launched the product last year, and we are proud of the traction we already have. And of course, we're hoping that that slide gets bigger and bigger over the time. Speaking about we, this is the team behind it. There's me and my co-founder. We are responsible for the development, the design, and the concept. And on the other side, our academic board providing the evidence-based content. Right now, we're looking for support. We not only need money, we need support in building network or just spreading the word. So if you think you can do something for us, please approach me after the session. I will be right here and happy to get in touch with you. Thank you.
It's me, right? Okay, cool.
Just wait for a minute. I think it's coming.
Where is it?
Yeah, there's a huge delay.
Yeah, just wait until
Okay, I just have to set a timer because I work too long in science. Yeah, it's also a pleasure for me. I'm Rehse, the founder and CEO of Neotiv. It's really a pleasure to speak to you as an audience and also at this Davos event. Talking about Neotiv, think about Neotiv to set a picture like a blood pressure monitor for the brain, but digital. So Alzheimer's disease is probably everywhere aware of this, one of the most challenging diseases of the 21st century. And the rate of death or causes of death is increasing heavily, just driven by Alzheimer's disease in comparison to other diseases like cancer. We as Neotiv, we are a scientific spin-out of the German Center for Neurodegenerative Diseases. So we have done fMRI analysis in the region of the brain where the pathology of Alzheimer's disease starts. And then we have invented new cognitive tests that test those regions to measure the performance, like this blood pressure monitor example. Then we have transferred those results into a digital solution, like for apps on a tablet and on a smartphone. And we see this whole thing as a holistic, I have to stay here, as a holistic scene. So we look primarily on the patient, we look at healthcare systems, we look at pharma companies and HCPs. So who's Neotiv and what are the stakeholders? In 2010, we have invented the basic research out of the DZ&E. Then in 2017, we have founded the company with funding from the German government. In 2025, we got the first products on the market and the VC investments. We are now at the moment with 12 million. Just have to sit here. And we are currently partnering with Roche, Eli Lilly, and Novo Nordisk, the main players for disease-modifying treatments. I will talk about this in a second. This is the management team behind it, so world-class scientists and business people, and we are now a team of 45. So what do we do at the end? What is the product? So the product, as I mentioned, is invented in functional MRI, and we are measuring certain brain regions, like the mnemonic discrimination, the object in room recall, and the complex scene recognition. These are the three tests we use as a blood pressure monitor. Coming to the full products we have invented, it's Neotiv Care. Neotiv Care is a pure healthcare product, MDD certified, and soon also MDR, and also 510K cleared. And this is to detect MCI. And on the other hand, we have Neotiv Trials for clinical research, where we use this to detect the right patient for the right pharma companies. And Neotiv Care is based on a B2B2C model, and B2C possible, and clinical research is a pure B2B model. This is why do we claim that we can do this and offer this to patients and the healthcare sector. I mentioned here again, we measure first this region, where the Alzheimer's progression starts. Then we measure the second region with the second test, and then the third region with the third test. This is basically where the Alzheimer's pathology starts in the brain. And it always starts within this pattern and then spreads from the medial temporal lobe to the hippocampus. And validated, as I mentioned, does it go back? No. Validated in world-class studies in the US, Sweden, and in Germany. Now the patient journey. Patient journey for Neotiv Care, so the B2B2C product. A patient goes to a doctor with cognitive problems and gets a prescription of Neotiv Care. The patient then installs this app, activates the app, then does perform the 3 tests. One test is 10 minutes a week, and then afterwards you can generate on your app a findings letter that gives you a composite score. This composite score tells you if you are in a range to go in the direction of mild cognitive impairment, or you get an all-clear signal. But the analysis of this letter is done by a GP or a specialist, so healthcare professionals. And afterwards, you start a treatment, or you get an all-clear signal and do more prevention. On the other hand, we have Neotiv Trials, where we claim to empower clinical research. So pharma companies use our tools to recruit patients faster because they don't have to go to a hospital to get recruited. They can do it at home, completely unsupervised. We are also language independent. That's the reason why you can use it on every country. And when the trial is running, we measure also the cognitive performance of a potential drug that will come to the market. Proven as a real-world application means this is not just the idea. We have shown that this technology works. I just brought 2 examples. On the left side is an example for Neotiv Care. On the right side is an example for Neotiv Trials. Neotiv Care was a project with Roche because they had a promising component on the market, gantenerumab. And we did a huge study in Germany, German-wide, where we looked at the patients and if the solution is accepted by patients. That's a quite impressive number, with 93% completed the tests over the whole period of time. We have diagnosed 40% with MCI and gave all clear signal 60%. And we also asked healthcare professionals if they like the solution, and we got 83% confirmation. On the right side, we always call it a power couple. We have worked together with REAL-AD. That's a big Swedish study out of Gothenburg. We have recruited since April 7,000 patients, and now we try to bring this together with blood biomarkers, together with the Alzheimer Drug Discovery Foundation. It's basically a foundation it's sponsored by Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, for example. And the idea is that Neotiv will build in the future the cognitive endpoint for Alzheimer's disease, and then you confirm this cognitive endpoint with a biomarker. At the moment, you do PET scans or CSF analysis, and blood is upcoming, and we want to combine. We want to be the gold standard for cognition, and blood will substitute CSF and PET scan. Why do we do this? Why is diagnosis so important? Here you see the cascade of Alzheimer's disease, healthy, and here you have dementia. And the disease starts, what not everyone knows, 15 to 20 years earlier, before you feel symptoms. And that's the reason why mild cognitive impairment is a key time point for the diagnosis and to start the intervention. So first takeaway, early detection is key. Second, there are many studies running. You see it on the left side, a couple of hundreds worldwide. And it's very promising that now with Eli Lilly and Eisai are the first 2 disease-modifying treatments on the market, but more have to come up. So second takeaway is you need Neotiv trials to further develop DMTs and improve DMTs. Third point is why do DMTs struggle at the market access? So the numbers Eisai and Lilly has created so far are not super promising because they have the missing piece of diagnosis. They don't get the right patient at the right time. So this is the reason why HCPs need the right patient at the right time for the right treatment. So basically, when you think like Corona, we are triaging the patients through a GP and the right patient then to a specialist who starts the treatment. So what is next coming? We want to fulfill the future of Alzheimer's disease treatment to people worldwide. So our idea of tomorrow is at home, you do a digital screening yourself. You get a signal, oh, go to your doctor. You go to a GP. Then we have a full version of Neotiv Care as a digital biomarker. You combine it with blood, what I mentioned before, and then we create a data bank behind your brain, like your blood pressure monitor data set. And then you go to a specialist and you start the therapy. And this is fast, payable in time, and even possible at the GP because currently only neurologists do the analysis of mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease. And it's scalable because it's a digital solution. You can do it completely unsupervised without going day per day to the doctor. So together, with your help, we can scale our solution on a worldwide level. That would be super great if you want to partner with us or even if you're interested in investment. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you to the Real Mental Health Foundation and Convergence partners for welcoming me here at this session. I'm Guillaume, co-founder of REGEnLIFE, a French medtech and neurotech company, which have the aim to treat Alzheimer's disease, one of the biggest challenge of our time, one of the most devastating burdens as well. And to do that, we harness the therapeutic power of light. So at first, treating neurological conditions with particles, with photons, by targeting both the brain and the gut microbiota seemed to be crazy. That's why the scientific approach is so crucial. And today I'm proud to say that we are closer than ever to bring this innovation to market with the expectation to transforming lives. Now, we are currently focusing on 3 major pathologies: Alzheimer's and dementia, traumatic brain injuries, and depression that affects millions of patients worldwide with few or limited treatment options. And what these pathologies have in common is the neuroinflammation, brain inflammation, and the involvement of the brain-gut microbiota axis in their development. And actually, indeed, these 2 organs, the brain and gut, are interconnected, linked through nerves and biochemical pathways. So that's why we have developed a medical device which takes the shape of a helmet and an abdominal belt to deliver near-infrared light to the brain and to the gut simultaneously. And each session lasts 20 minutes. It's very well tolerated by patients. And it's patented, actually. We have 4 patents family, 33 granted patents. And how does it work? The process we use is called photobiomodulation. That means to modulate biological functions with light, with photons. And according to the leading hypothesis, near-infrared light can be absorbed by a cytochrome located in the mitochondria, the powerhouse of our cells. And from this optical absorption, there is an energy production, ATP synthase, and an activation of intracellular signaling pathways, which help to modulate the inflammatory response. It has been instrumental to start our development on animal models. So we have achieved a preclinical development. First, on Alzheimer's disease, we have achieved a study on an Alzheimer's model. And what we have observed is that a brain-gut stimulation was more efficient in comparison to a brain-only or gut-only stimulation. And in this model, we have normalized both short and long-term memory, neuroinflammation biomarkers, Alzheimer's-related biomarkers, and a modulation of the gut microbiota. On other models, depression and multiple sclerosis, we have shown the same kind of impact on the behavioral, cognitive function, and neuroinflammation. So there is a broader application of the technology beyond Alzheimer's. we have decided to focus firstly on the mild to moderate stages of Alzheimer's that affect 80% of patients. And while the anticholinesterase inhibitors drugs are becoming less prescribed and reimbursed, and while the anti-amyloid therapies will concern a small fringe of patients and amyloid positive. We have published in 2022 our first clinical trial, a pilot study. In this study, we have included 43 patients in a double-blind, randomized sham-controlled study. And we have demonstrated the safety and a very good patient compliance and also efficacy on cognitive scores and subscores, on certain cognitive scores and subscores over a very short treatment period, only 2 months of treatment with 1 month of follow-up. So this has given us the ability to start the Light for Life study, a clinical trial. It's an ongoing trial. It's a multicentric, double-blind, randomized, and we are currently including 108 patients, mild to moderate Alzheimer's, and they will receive the treatment few sessions per week during 6 months. And we have currently 3 hospitals, and we are going to open 3 more. So we should complete the study during next year. At the same time, we have completed the recovery study. It's a pilot clinical trial on sports-related concussion. In this study, we have treated 50 sport people within 72 hours after their concussion. And this, the full results will be published soon. But first you have to know that when a player has a concussion, he has neurovisual and vestibular impairments. And what I can already share with you is that we have observed like a fast action of the treatment before and after effect, after the treatment session. And for instance, we have measured some physiological functions and the oculomotor functions. And with this measurement in one score, we have observed that 14% of the patients after their concussion have a normal score. However, after only 1 treatment session, there were 40% to have a normal score. After the second treatment session, there were 40%. So we are also preparing the CE marking and on the MDR. So we should launch the commercial rollout next year. We are a team of 8 people with a leadership team and experts, renowned experts in the field of healthcare and technology. Our international scientific advisory board is chaired by Professor Jacques Touchon, who is here with us today. In terms of competition, we are positioned with players in the field of neurostimulation, using invasive brain implants or non-invasive brain stimulation with a lot of technologies. But what we do is unique because we are currently the first treatment to target both the brain and gut as a medical device and with a unique technological optical configuration. We plan to deploy our medical device as a service. We'll sell it to the prescribers, hospitals, physicians that will deliver the treatment to patients with the expectation to be reimbursed by public and private payers. So regarding Alzheimer's, we launched the product for to make the patient if they want to get the treatments, they can go to the hospitals, of course, but we also want that the treatment has to be delivered at home. So we want to involve the caregivers as a social innovative solution, and it will be more accessible and cost effective as well. Regarding conclusions, we have identified 3 key markets: sports medicine, trauma and emergency, including the falls of the elderly, and military medicine. To transform this bold vision into reality, today we are raising 10 million euros, and we are going to close in April. And this investment will enable us to deploy our device on concussion in EU first, to complete our clinical trial on Alzheimer's for preparing the CE marking and the market launch in 2027. And we also want to start, actually we plan to start a clinical trial on depression, on treatment-resistant depression this year, to get the results next year. And we also prepared the roadmap for entering the US market and scalability as well. So this investment will help us for this development and to transform lives. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Guillaume. So I'm now opening the floor for questions.
So I'm interested in knowing what you were mentioning here about Alzheimer's. We all know that brain diseases affect women and men in different ways. And sometimes this means different type of diagnosis and different type of evolution. We know that 2 out of 3 patients of Alzheimer's are women. In your studies, both in the diagnosis and then in the treatment, do you find some differences in terms of the gender?
I can maybe start. Excellent question. From our experiences, we haven't seen it, to be honest. But also, to be fair, you would need to look to the data sets because often more women participate in studies. It's also the reality. And so for this reason, this answer is vague. I know these numbers. I cannot confirm it from but we haven't looked at it in detail. I'm just be honest.
Yeah, in our study on Alzheimer's disease, actually in Alzheimer's, women are more affected in comparison to men. So 2/3 of the patients are women. So we have studied in our first study the gender response to the treatment, and we have not published yet the data because we want to consolidate it in our current clinical trial on 80, and in that way we could adapt the treatment according to the gender.
Thank you. Hi, Sabine from Masawa Venture Fund focusing on mental health. This is a question for all of you guys. What are the main or biggest challenges you've been facing with the different stakeholders in the mental health space or in the healthcare space, meaning pharma, insurers? Like, what has been kind of the bottlenecks to get your product into market and then scale?
Should I start? Okay. For us, it's definitely reimbursement. That's the biggest question. That's the first question that a therapist asks: who will pay it? And for us, I mean, we have a B2B SaaS, software as a service model. So our client is the therapist or the clinic, and as long as it doesn't get reimbursed from the insurance companies, it's difficult to get in there.
Is it okay when I say something? I've shown you this one slide with these 4 stakeholders: patients, HCPs, pharma, and insurances. And With patients, it's for us surprisingly, I've shown you the numbers from the Roche study we've done. Adherence of 93% is quite high for a digital solution, that people do this over a longer period of time. That was impressive. I think median is 50 to 60% currently when I look at other solutions. However, with patients, no problem. With pharma, also not a problem, because now the DMTs are out and everyone is riding on this wave. And I've shown you we already work with the biggest players. And so also not the biggest problem. I think HCPs is one of the biggest challenges, not the specialists, but the GPs, because currently the GPs send every patient kind of who comes with cognitive problems to the specialists, and then you have a 9 to 12 months waiting time, and that's the reason why we try to enable the GP to build the triage and send the right patients to the neurologist, but you have to train the GP first for new technology, and this is the most challenging part, I would say. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Did you guys want to comment as well?
I mean, I can do a quick comment. Our product isn't in patients yet, but what we foresee are the bigger challenges are, one, you have to convince people to put in a device like this, which I think is changing rapidly. There's a lot of acceptance now by patients for solutions that actually help them in their everyday life. But you also completely change the paradigm of who, and this is a terrible thing to say in medicine, but it's true, who owns the patient? And when you start to create solutions that go across the board and they'll sit with patients for life, and the patient can now be part of that journey, you change considerably who owns that patient in the healthcare system. And while that shouldn't be the question, it is, because that person is the one who's going to help you get the reimbursement and get it paid for and deal with a lot of the bureaucracy behind what happens. And so that's something that we're going to have to look at and work with the Healthcare Society on is, okay, who owns the patient when you say, okay, you can put in a monitoring device and this device stays with the patient now long term and is also a form of treatment and is also monitoring treatments and becomes an integral part of the entire pathway. It starts to get a little tricky, but that's where we just have to kind of push forward with education at all levels of the healthcare system. And we have to really sort of go out and shout about it and say to people, things have to change. You have to change the way we do things. It's not going to be easy, but we've got to do it.
Yeah, last comment. We know the challenge and we have to deal with it. So we have to be prepared, and we are prepared. The only thing is when you develop a safe solution, and we have more and more demonstrations about the safety of the technology, and that would be great, especially in Europe, to have facilities to bring this innovation in an easier way, to facilitate clinical trial, and gives the opportunity to patients to access to innovative therapies.
Yes, thank you, Rehse. For those of you who propose solution where you are collecting data from the patient, in which frame are you playing? How do you sort of make sure that there is still data privacy for the patient?
We're going to collect a lot of data from the brain. That's kind of the whole concept here. And this is a massive topic. So there's two things we're going to do with this. A, you just have to meet all the best standards that are out there for collecting that data, storing that data, and working with that data. And that's a given. That's what has to happen. But then there's two very big questions that open up after this. And I had this conversation with someone yesterday. There's the ethics around collecting brain data now. This is a huge topic. So we're going to work with neuroethicists. They're kind of a new group of people who are rising in the States who are there to really look after the question, the ethics of what is brain data and what can you do with it, how much of it is private. So we will be onboarding them in our advisory board to make sure we're in that space. And then the question is, what do you do with the data once you own it? There's a big question of monetizing data, whether that's correct or not correct. How do you monetize it in a responsible way? And there are a lot of models out there. There are new models out there of how we're going to work with this data, depending on whether it's the patient data, whether it's a pharma study. We'll be involved in a lot of pharma trials. And there's a lot of ways to do this, and I think it's going to take a conversation to see. But the newer models of kind of data sharing and and working with both pharma industry who want the data exclusively and patients who want it democratized and they want it available socially, there are ways to satisfy both. Absolutely. There are models coming out that satisfy both. And I think we as a company, because we're going to collect massive amounts of brain data, are going to be dealing with this absolutely at the forefront. And it's one of the big topics out there, not just the technology, but what do you do with the data?
Maybe on our side, 2 products, right? You have trials for pharma and universities. Always you have ethics behind, so the study sponsor owns the data. And on the care side, we have terms and conditions when you download the app, and you are the owner of the data set, because you have at the end the findings letter, and you decide if you go with this findings letter to the doctor. Otherwise, yeah, it's always in your hands. We don't own the data.
We spent a lot of time dealing with this question as well. And we have the standards. I mean, we do have end-to-end encryption. We also have an encryption on the data level, so we are not storing plain data. Everything is encrypted. And we are running our own infrastructure. So everything is on our own servers inside Switzerland for now. And that's what we're doing. And of course, the data belongs to the patient, and they are in control of all of them.
I think there's one important thing that I'm an advocate for patients owning their own data and not giving it away to pharma for lots of money. But there's also reality that if we want to learn from the data, and our sole purpose is to learn from that data to figure out how do drugs work, how a disease is characterized, how can we treat patients better, we need to work with the data. So we have to be able to analyze our own data effectively and then share that result. We can't just kind of, collect all the data and give it away. We've got to be able to work with it first. So it's a very careful balance. It's going to open up a lot of discussions, a lot. But I think there's ways to do it.
One last question.
Sorry, could you explain a little bit more the light therapeutic for the gut? How does the cap reach the gut?
Yeah, you mean about the diffusion of light into tissue? Yeah, actually the near-infrared light can be diffused into tissue, and it can go quite deeply. It has a limitation. But regarding the brain, for instance, we can easily target the wood cortex and some white matter. And we can simulate the photons transportation to the brain using the Monte Carlo simulation, for instance. And we can also study it on animal models as well. So it's established that, and what we do is also to make it more efficient using optical guides, etc., and to bring the light as deeply as possible into the brain, non-invasively, and to the gut as well.
Great, thank you guys. Would you, each one of you, just give a concluding statement for the panel today? Addressing the Davos crowd.
Addressing the Davos crowd. You're all great people. You all have more money than me. We have a great technology, though. And I think if you want to really start to change the way we deal with brain disorders across the whole spectrum, we have got to have better data on the brain. And if you want better data on the brain, you have to work with patients in a way that they love. And I think this is the way we do it. We send them home with something so easy, no one says no to it. And that's how we start to fix brain disorders.
Yeah. Actually, I don't have much to add. Help spreading the word and to make psychotherapy accessible for everyone fast.
Yeah, I would also ask you politely to spread the word and explain the crowd that the brain is an organ, because often people just think below the head, and there are a lot of solutions already on the market, but you can have an impact on your brain, and especially in our context with Alzheimer's disease, if you do early detection of Alzheimer's disease, you have a chance to have a fulfilled life longer.
Yeah. I have the good feeling that we together can make the brain healthier.
Okay, Great, thanks, guys. So you've seen 4 examples of amazing innovation that's coming out in the brain and mental health space. We are seeing, I would say, on average, 20 new projects a week. There's an awful lot happening. But I think the investor interest, it is increasing. Our portfolio companies raised something like 50 million euros in the last financial year. But I think much more funding is required. We feel that the brain is going to be the biggest investment opportunity over the next decades. And I think investors are also starting to wake up to that. So if you would like to participate and also invest in these companies here, we've actually established an SPV structure here in Switzerland where you can co-invest from 15,000 Swiss francs or dollars. So please contact me if you're interested. And we're also in the process of launching a new 100 million euro brain health fund, which will cover neurology and psychiatry. So if you're interested to participate here, let us know as well. Thank you very much for your attention today.
Thank you all for being here and having fun with us. Yes, I do. I certainly do. Hello.